We just decided to remove the bandwidth restrictions and let those customers fully utilize their connected devices and have a better online experience. We didn't feel the internet provider should limit the customer in that factor.
This is episode 327 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. There's a certain elegance that comes with simplicity, and in Reedsburg, Wisconsin, subscribers to the city's LightSpeed internet access are finding that out firsthand. This past spring, the Reedsburg Utility Commission decided to eliminate all but the gigabit tier, which is super affordable to subscribers. Brett Schupner from the Utility Commission has been on the show before to discuss their expansion efforts, and once again he talks about how the Commission will bring LightSpeed to more premises beyond the city limits. Brett also talks about their decision to go all gig, the response from subscribers, and how the network is influencing the business community. In addition to sharing some of the history behind LightSpeed, Brett and Christopher discuss the role of the network in the community's vibrant telecommuting population and their newly acquired certification as a telecommuting forward community. If you're a regular Community Broadband Bits listener, you might notice that we've made some minor changes to the way we publish the podcast. These changes shouldn't affect your ability to access the podcast, but if you encounter any problems, please let us know. Send a note to podcast@muninetworks.org. Now here's Christopher with Brett Schupner from Reedsburg Utilities Commission.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Chris Mitchell with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in Minneapolis, talking to Brett Schupner, the General Manager of Reedsburg Utility Commission. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Brett, there's a brief hesitation if you're listening closely, because I was going to say something about a over-the-border rival or something like that. What with this being fall sports season, football, hockey's going to be starting soon. I'm sure you're in the Wisconsin camp. I'm in the Minnesota camp. So, but then I decided not to, and then I decided to do it anyway.
Well, yeah, isn't this weekend the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe for the football teams?
I think so. No, I think we're playing Iowa this week. I think you have one of your other games that may not present as much of a challenge.
Okay.
Brett, you're not too far away from Madison in Wisconsin. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Reedsburg?
Yep, Reedsburg. It's just under an hour from Madison to kind of the northwest. A lot of people might be more familiar with Wisconsin Dells as a popular tourist area, and we're just like 15 miles from Wisconsin Dells area. Reedsburg is located in Sauk County and with a population of just under 10,000 residents.
And your network, we're going to get to this toward the end of the show, but your network's a lot closer to the Dells, or it will be very soon. So that's some exciting news. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about was something you've done, which I know some other folks have thought about in the municipal broadband space, but haven't done. You're all gig now. Your standard rate, if someone signs up for internet access, they're going to get a gig to the internet. Tell us about that.
Yep, you're 100% correct. Reedsburg Utility is the electric and water utility for the city of Reedsburg. And then in the early 1990s, the city decided they wanted to take matters in their own hands regarding the telecommunication needs of the city. So in January of 2000, Reedsburg became the first municipality to obtain its certification as a alternate telecommunications utility in Wisconsin. We started providing services on our 100% fiber network by 2002. In 2011, then we actually started expanding outside the city limits, and we cover probably getting close to 25 to 30% of rural Sauk County now with our fiber deployment. And like you mentioned earlier, which gets us up to the Wisconsin Dells area and some other neighboring communities. In 2014, we became the first gigabit provider in the state of Wisconsin. And then this year, we decided to actually dust off an old brand that we had when we started back in early 2000s called LightSpeed. So we dusted off that logo and rebranded ourselves as LightSpeed Internet. And that's when we rolled out our unthrottled access to our gigabit fiber network and started providing gig service as our standard and only residential internet option. And basically, we're the only provider in the state that is doing that, and from what I understand, one of the only maybe 3 in the nation that are doing that. Our residential customers, especially if they're bundling it with TV or phone service, can get that for as low as $45 a month gig service.
Right, and I think the only other places that I know of that are doing it were in the Bay Area, the private company Sonic, which we've talked to folks from there before. They're very forward-thinking. And in Vermont, I believe VTEL was doing that in an area in which they received a substantial federal grant for fiber to the home. But yeah, I'm not aware of anyone else that I can think of that's been so bold. Is this something that you are concerned about? I mean, you certainly have been in the fiber game for longer than almost anyone else. So you have more than enough background in data to have a sense of what your costs are. But just walk me through the decision-making process to make that switch.
We are 100% fiber, so we don't really have a limitation on our network like some of the people that are converting from a old copper plant to a fiber plant. So this was something that really didn't cost us more to do. And I guess, we just felt like, we want to be a leader in this field. So let's be the leader. Let's say, bring it out. Let's throw the gloves off and let's deliver gig. We're seeing even increased demands in households, with their multiple internet-enabled devices. They're doing more video streaming, more gaming, telemedicine, online education, telecommuting is becoming a bigger thing we're seeing around here. I guess we just decided to remove the bandwidth restrictions and let those customers fully utilize their connected devices and have a better online experience. We didn't feel the internet provider should limit the customer in that factor.
And how long have you been doing this?
We rolled this out in May of 2018.
So in the time you've been offering this gig connection as a standard, are you seeing a greater demand on your wholesale? Do you have to increase your transit at all, or have you had to upgrade any routers?
Our standard speed before rolling out the gig standard was 100 meg service. So I don't think the gig service has really changed customers' behaviors in regards of downloading more data. It's just that they can utilize and see the benefit of the speed and all their devices at one time. So we really haven't seen our wholesale bandwidth increase drastically other than just by adding customers and that. So I think if we were starting out at a much lower speed where by giving customers more speed, it changed their habits, then you would see a peak or a change in the wholesale connections. What we have been seeing, though, is actually customers are now buying devices capable of handling higher speeds. We've seen it quite a few times since May where customers are buying computers now that can actually see a gig. So it's interesting when our installers go to a house and it's like, I want to see, the customer might say, I want to see this gig. And then they do a speed test and they're actually seeing it. They're seeing 900 and upper 900, 950s and stuff like that for their speed tests. So, it's with typically on one device, a standard device, you're not going to see that. But it is actually changing customers' behaviors that if it's available, they will adapt and use it.
Well, one of the things that I've heard from gigabit providers is that even your higher end wireless access points, your routers, your home routers, have often only had a 100 megabit port on the WAN side, the wide area network side. And so people are sometimes surprised at, they might be getting a high capacity connection, but they have to buy a new router to take advantage of it.
Right, and we provide the router. We want to control that experience. We want to control that device so that we can make sure the customers, we're delivering the service, I guess, so that Wi-Fi connection is capable of getting a gig out there. So we provide actually 2 wireless access points as a standard delivery so that we can provide good coverage through the house and the customers can utilize that service.
Well, but that's popular. You had mentioned earlier the telecommuting, and you are the 4th recognized telecommuter forward city in Wisconsin. What's that all about?
earlier this year, the Wisconsin legislature passed Telecommuter Forward Community Certification for communities to promote that there's internet service available in that community for businesses and residents to have telecommuting opportunities. And Senator Markline, which is the senator for our district, District 17 in Wisconsin, was actually one of the co-sponsors, and then actually our state representative, Ed Brooks, was also a sponsor of that legislation. And when that came out, they said Reedsburg is the, prime example of why this certification was passed.
Yeah, I can only imagine the advantage that people have working from Reedsburg relative to the average community in a smaller town in Wisconsin. I mean, are you seeing an influx of people that are trying to take advantage of that?
We do see people, that maybe one spouse lives in Madison and or works in Madison, sorry. And, so then the other spouse might work somewhere else or work in Reedsburg. So if they're in this area, those working in Madison might have an opportunity to actually work a few days from home. We do regularly get calls from customers, people even outside our service area, wondering if they can get Reedsburg Utility LightSpeed internet for the telecommuting opportunities.
So one of the other things that's just come up is the state of Wisconsin is putting about $7 million into expanded high-quality internet access. And you, looks like you received grants to expand in the nearby town of Spring Green and the area around there for $300,000 and $137,000 in a town called Delton. That seems like a pretty big deal. I mean, are you going to, I guess you probably have ambitions ultimately to serve all of Sauk County, but I have to say I'm just thrilled to see the state of Wisconsin putting money into these smart local projects rather than big DSL projects.
Like you said, the state does have a broadband grant program, and actually this last two rounds have been over $7 million of grants available. We actually applied. We had 3 different applications that we put in. There was, I think, a total of 83 applications were submitted. We had the number 4 ranked and the number 7 ranked applications. So both of those were funded. One of them is just outside the Wisconsin Dells, Lake Delton area for some rural subdivision that basically customers can't get over 3 megabits per second downloads. There's actually, I got an example here of one resident that lives in this rural subdivision said our current internet provider has a maximum speed of about 2.6 megabits per second with an upload of 0.1 megabits per second. Our family has limited access to online educational resources that leaves our children struggling to keep up with their peers. This resident lives less than a half a mile from the village limits of Lake Delton. So it's just, how close they can be but not have such limited access is kind of odd, or, just seems like that wouldn't be the case, I guess, is what I'm saying. So we applied for a grant for this subdivision, and we did get it. So now we'll be able to bring our gigabit fiber network to these residents and their neighbors, which will definitely, change their lives of how they can, or what they can do from their home.
Are you seeing any increased thought about the towns or townships or others trying to figure out how to supplement the state program or do something just out of recognition that if they wait for the state to fund their area, they might be waiting too long?
Yes, definitely. Actually, the grant that we got for the town of Spring Green is a perfect example of that. We've been working with the town of Spring Green over the last couple of years. They've reached out to us numerous times trying to see if there's ways we can bring our service down to them. So we've been working through the broadband grant process to try to get some additional funding to do this, to make this cost effective for everyone involved. With us being a municipally owned telco, it isn't fair for the residents of Reedsburg to have to take out financing to fund a project that's not basically in their taxing district. So the town of Spring Green and Reedsburg Utility, we've partnered, and what we're going to do with this project that was awarded this grant is actually the town of Spring Green is going to own the fiber, the buried fiber and ducts. So basically the fiber plant, and then we're going to lease it from them and provide the service. So then that way they're getting the funding or the financing to put the buried plant in the ground. We're going to be basically lighting it up and providing the service. And through the leasing of their fibers, then that's how they're going to be able to pay for their investment in their infrastructure that they're going to own.
That's great to hear. I mean, that's a really replicable model. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I could see happening in a number of places where, well, and in this case, we're taking advantage of a state program. But if you're willing to do that, and the local governments are willing to own that and to work with you on it, that seems like a win-win-win.
Yeah, and this, in this Town of Spring Green project that we're going to be doing, it's actually, we're anticipating this is the first phase, and you mentioned it earlier that maybe, our goal is to provide fiber service throughout Sauk County. And we've actually had discussions with representatives from Sauk County, and that is something they're interested in too. So this is probably kind of like a test project, or, to see how this works, a demo, and see how, if this could be replicated throughout other townships.
Yeah, I don't know if you're paying attention in Minnesota, but to brag a little bit, a lot of the Minnesota counties have been working with rural telephone cooperatives who are doing a great job of expanding this access, and so certainly you would expect to see that in Wisconsin as well, since states are pretty similar. Yeah,
and I think we're seeing a little bit of that even through the broadband grant process. Like I said, there was 83 applications, and some of them were local providers, other local providers working with counties to expand out broadband further into rural areas.
So when we talked previously, you had mentioned that there were certainly a number of local businesses in Reedsburg that have really benefited from the fiber network that you've been providing. I'm curious if you have any other maybe more recent anecdotes of how the network is benefiting the community.
Recently, our city administrator was commenting on when potential site locators for new businesses, new industries call Reedsburg to see what we have to offer. He says the top three things that they ask about are safety, schools, and internet. So, as Reedsburg's concerned, I think we nail all three of them, very highly. It's something that industries are looking for. We do have most of I'd like to say all of our industries right now are just booming. They can't find enough employees, so they're looking for other opportunities of like the telecommuting, where, they can get into another workforce and have people work from home. Actually, one business I can think of, they just recently bought a plant it's somewhere in southern U.S., and we actually, through a private connection, we deliver internet all the way to their plant down in Tennessee. So, to have that's our farthest internet customer we have right now. So, but it's through a private connection that we contracted with another provider to get down to there. So internet is something, that's a priority to some of these businesses and industries.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about a recent press release you sent out was that Bill Especk from the Wisconsin I forget, it's the WSTA. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's the private telephone companies and often the co-ops, I think. He was there speaking, and I'm curious, because he'd been an opponent of municipal broadband in the past. Is your project, is it less controversial now? Are people more comfortable with what you're doing?
I guess we do partner with a lot of WSTA members around us. As that organization, I can't speak for them specifically. The real reason he was here was for, basically the press event with the local legislature. So it was cordial and but I don't know if their stance has really changed on that or not, as an organization, but as individual members, I truly feel that we all are in it to serve our customers, especially as when you look at the cooperatives and the local ILECs and that. So, I think we have a common goal there, and, we'll maybe set aside some political differences to serve the customer.
I think that's a good sentiment that we want to make sure people hear, is that this is about ultimately making sure people have good internet access. So That's a good reminder. Well, thank you, Brett, for coming on, reminding us that you've been there doing this great work in Reedsburg. And I'm curious to see if you inspire other communities to also have gigabit as their standard option, so that it's frankly, it'll be easier for people to understand without all the tiers and things like that, but also just giving such a great experience. So thanks for being willing to experiment with that and telling us about it.
From what we've seen from our, customers that actually we've been adding and stuff like that, it's definitely something people are interested in. We've been busy since we've rolled that out.
Oh, that's actually really interesting. I mean, you already had quite a large market share, so you're seeing that has attracted new interest then.
Yeah. Before we rolled that out, I'd say compared to our normal, new customers versus our churn, I'd say we've probably tripled in adding new customers every month since Gig Standard is rolled out.
Wow. Well, terrific. Thank you again.
No problem. Well, appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you.
That was Christopher with Brett Shepner, General Manager of Reedsburg Utilities Commission in Wisconsin. We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle is @muninetworks. Subscribe to this podcast and the other ILSR podcasts, Building Local Power and the Local Energy Rules podcast. You can access them wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss out on our original research. Subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org, and while you're there, take a moment to donate. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons, and thanks for listening to episode 327 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast.